All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar on Microsoft Project Online End of Life. I'm Kenneth Steinis, the founder and CEO of Sensei Project Solutions, and I have with me today two colleagues and subject matter experts, Chad Olson and Mark Reed. Please feel free to use the chat to submit questions throughout the webinar, and then we will address those questions around the halfway point or so. But first, let's cover the facts. So Project Online will officially retire on September 30th of this year. That means you will no longer be able to access it and your data will go away at that time. Now, Project Online is made up of three components. There's the Project Desktop, the SharePoint Content Database, and Project Web App, or PWA for short. Now, the desktop is primarily used to manage the schedule or the detailed tasks and assignments. So that's your work breakdown structure, start and finish dates, dependencies, deadlines, baseline, and so on. Project Web App is where the enterprise work management or project and portfolio management activities happen. That covers the governance, workflows, risks, issues, changes, decisions, programs, portfolios, intake with scoring and prioritization, resource management, timesheets, and much more. And all of that data is stored in the SharePoint Content Database. So let's talk about the options that you have for moving on from Project Online. The first option, and the one that Microsoft prefers, is that you transition to using Planner Premium plans with the Power Platform. Mark is a big advocate of this option, and he will unpack the details behind this approach shortly. The second option is to do a migration from Project Online to Project Server Subscription Edition, where you essentially get the same functionality as you have today, but your organization is now responsible for hosting the infrastructure as well. Chad is intimately familiar with this option, and he will walk us through what the migration looks like in a few minutes. But first, Mark, can you please tell us why you prefer using Planner Premium plans in conjunction with the Power Platform?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Kenneth. First of all, let's not think of Planner on its own as a replacement for Project Online. Planner is a work management tool and a very capable one at that. In combination with the Power Platform, it can replace Project Online for the majority of organizations. The newish Planner brings together Microsoft To Do, the old Planner, and Project for the Web in a modern interface that provides team access to plans, boards, charts, and advanced task features. And it really shines when used in combination with Teams and the Power Platform for true enterprise work management and AI. And with only Microsoft 365, and with only a Microsoft 365 license, users can access their tasks, and teams can collaborate around planned activities. Shelby will drop a link in to a longer walkthrough in the chat, but let's look at a few highlights right now. The first thing that you notice in Planner is the My Day view. It shows what you should be focused on right now across private tasks, flagged emails, basic and premium plans. You can add and remove tasks manually from here, or they will show up in this view automatically if their due date is today. You can status your tasks directly in the grid, or you can open a task to to see more details, and you can status the work here. And of course, you can add a new private task here as well. The My Tasks view shows all work regardless of when it's due. And so I tend to sort by due date so that I can see if anything's falling behind. Now, at the task level, Planner Premium plans offer a more detailed and rich experience with duration, percent complete, sprint functionality, effort, custom fields, advanced dependencies with lead and lag time, as well as task conversations in teams, and the ability to connect a task to project goals. You even get a complete task history so that you can track detailed changes on the task. This is a feature that goes beyond traditional baseline functionality, which really only recorded static versions of 14 fields. Task change history actually captures what changed on any field and shows who changed it and when. That's critical if you're managing a plan that other people have access to. The upgraded board view helps you to organize your work into customizable buckets. I've grouped the work by functional area in this plan, but you can also group by assigned to, progress, finish date, labels, priority, and sprint. As you would expect, you can drag and drop tasks between the columns in this view. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing when you're moving stuff off the backlog into a sprint. And you can actually do this in real time with your audience watching, which is something you could never really do in project. So another big reason why I'm a fan of Planner and the Power Platform is they both get to leverage Copilot for AI. Inside of Planner, there are actually 3 agents. The project manager agent will help you to build a plan based upon your stated goals and any supporting documentation you may have uploaded. And you can even assign the agent to complete the work, which is very, very cool. This works best with what Microsoft calls common information work tasks like research. Another option is the more traditional Copilot chat agent in Planner. Here you can create tasks and goals. Copilot produces the best results from detailed and specific prompts. It also goes beyond just the data in the plan. For example, you can ask it about a status meeting, and it will actually read the project calendar to provide answers. The third agent is the status report with AI Project Manager. You must have at least 10 tasks in a shared plan with some progress in order to get the best results. Here, you can select a report period and then enter a specific goal for your report. The agent now analyzes the plan and produces a status report for the selected time frame. You can then edit the report. You can also share it as a newsletter or send it out via email. There are also multiple Copilot agents in Power Apps that work with your project data, but we don't have enough time to cover all of those in this webinar. So Shelby will be putting a link in the chat to a more detailed walkthrough of those options. So in summary, Planner is a modern, team-centric work management offering. It is the go-forward platform for Microsoft's work management vision. And with the addition of Sensei IQ, it can be a central part of your enterprise project and portfolio management solution. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about migration. While there's no direct migration from Project Online to Planner, there are several ways to get your data moved. Your Microsoft project schedules can easily be manually imported from MPP files, or you can use tools like Easy Import to do an automated bulk import. To bring over your SharePoint lists and libraries from PWA, there are some migration tools out there like FluentBooks and ShareGate, but we highly recommend taking the time to streamline and to simplify your processes and be aware of the capabilities of the new platform that you might want to take advantage of. Please don't just migrate the old way of doing things, but use this as an opportunity to re-listen to your users and make things easier for them. The same goes for your governance workflows and your overall configuration in Project Online, like custom fields and project detail pages. This is an excellent time to make the practice of project management better at your organization.
All right. Great. Thank you, Mark, for that. That was a great summary of why organizations should choose option 1, Planner with the Power Platform. Now, Chad, why don't you tell us why you think a migration to Project Server Subscription Edition might be the right option?
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Kenneth. You might want your users to keep the same functionality and user experience, which Project Server Subscription Edition provides. You also might not have enough time to investigate new tools, such as Planner at this time, to see if they fit all your needs. Project Server Subscription Edition gives you the same features and functionality as Project Online, except it's hosted by your organization, whether that be on premises or in the cloud within a virtual machine infrastructure in Microsoft Azure. Users can keep using the Microsoft Project Desktop client that has advanced scheduling functionality and features your user base has years of experience with. The one thing that will be different is that Project Server Subscription Edition does not support OData web connections for reporting. Instead, you'll be able to connect directly to the tables and views using SQL connections that are much faster and provide more query functionality. You can host these reports in Power BI in the cloud or Power BI Report Server if you want to keep everything stored on premises. You can leverage analytical or paginated reports using the SQL connector and even use direct query, which provides real-time reporting. So no longer will you be waiting for your data refreshes to your model. Migration to Project Server Subscription Edition is supported by using Fluent Pro's migration software. Using this approach is recommended if you have a large number of projects and resources. Fluent Pro can also migrate resource engagements, project sites, and even timesheets if needed. If you have a smaller subset of projects and you don't need to migrate advanced features, you could simply save the project as individual MPP files from Project Online and import them into Project Server. In terms of the migration process, you'll first need to determine where your users will come from. If you're utilizing virtual machines in Azure, you will need to set up Microsoft Entra domain services in your existing tenant. This is required because SharePoint and Project Server require NTLM or Kerberos authentication, of which Microsoft Entra ID does not support. If you are installing on premises, your users will be coming from your local Active Directory, and no additional components need to be installed to support those users. In either case, you will need to determine the recommended number of servers and hardware specs that are required for your expected data sets. We are putting a link to Microsoft's guide in the chat. You need to install Microsoft SQL Server software. You'll have to install SharePoint Server Subscription Edition, configure Project Server Subscription Edition, patch the software to the latest cumulative updates, open firewall ports if required, determine the DNS domain name to be used and change that if required, obtain SSL certificate and install and configure, determine if Office Online Server is required to open Office documents within the browser. If so, you'll need to install and configure that, and determine your desired reporting platform. If you want to keep reports on premises, install and configure Power BI Report Server. If you want to have all your reporting in the cloud, install a data gateway or open the port required to get access to your SQL database, and then perform user acceptance testing. To move from a software as a service platform that Project Online provided to Project Server Subscription Edition means your IT department will now need to manage those servers. Depending on the size of your environment, you might have multiple web front-end servers, application servers, and a dedicated database server to manage. This will require patching the servers with the latest software updates, managing database disaster recovery plans, managing disk space, and maintaining optimal system performance.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chad. Very much appreciated. There is, of course, a hybrid approach here as well, where the foundation will be your Microsoft 365 tenant, Power Platform, Microsoft Teams, and Copilot. In this hybrid approach, you'll actually be able to utilize multiple work management options. So you can connect to the existing Project Online environment, as well as Project Server Subscription Edition while you're transitioning. And for those users that see a better fit, you can use Planner Basic and Premium plans. In fact, the whole premise here is that your teams can utilize just about any work management option they choose to manage the detailed work or the tasks and assignments, if you like, on their projects. So regardless of where the tasks are managed, you get that standardized and consistent approach to project management, program portfolio management, resource management, and strategy. This way you have a standard intake process, you have true enterprise resource management, and all projects get consistent governance workflows and collaboration and so on. This approach buys you more time as well. In the short term, you'll have access, as I mentioned, to Project Online. And after September 30th, your users can continue to use the project desktop, but now connected to Project Server, while you evaluate Planner and any other options. So as you can imagine, we get a lot of questions about this. So we've compiled the top 10 here. And after we go through those, we'll take questions from the chat. So let's dive into these. So if I have task level custom fields in Project Online today, which option should I choose? Mark, I'll let you speak to this one.
Yeah, if you're otherwise leaning towards option 1, you can absolutely extend Planner to include custom fields. So that's not a showstopper.
Okay, great. What about baselines?
Yeah, Planner does have some baseline functionality, although it's not as advanced as Project Online. There is an alternative. Task change history is great. However, you do have the option of taking snapshots of your data in Power Apps. So that allows you to track progress over time and report against your initial baseline.
Okay, awesome. What about if I use the feature to move incomplete work forward of the status date? What's my best option then?
You can get very close to the same result in Planner, either by increasing the duration or changing the finish date of tasks.
Okay. What about due dates and deadlines? I know that those fields don't exist in Planner, certainly not in Planner Premium plans.
That's right. But you can add those as task level custom fields, like we discussed earlier. And by the way, Microsoft refers to them as enterprise custom columns.
Okay, great. What about schedule templates?
Today, our clients use the copy plan functionality, which works just fine. But Microsoft has a true custom template functionality for Planner in development right now. And the rollout is supposed to start any day now.
All right, well, that sounds great. Can't wait to see that. We also have many clients that use the earned value feature in Project Online. What about that?
I can answer that one, Kenneth. Yeah, if this is a critical feature, then you'll need to go with option 2, which is Project Server Subscription Edition.
Okay, short and sweet. I like it. What about resource leveling?
Yeah, that will be the same answer there, Kenneth. That's only available within Project Server.
Okay. What if I track costs at the task level today in Project? Which option do I go with then?
Well, Project Server is where you have the time phase data. So if you want that exact functionality, that's your go-to. However, with most organizations using multiple work management tools, we recommend that you separate the budget, the planned spending, and actuals from the schedule, like we do in the Sensei IQ finance module.
All right. Many organizations that we've worked with use the Project Online timesheet in dual entry mode so that it also statuses the schedule.
Yeah. Well, you do have the option of doing timesheets on the Power Platform and in Sensei IQ, but to status the schedule, you'll need to go with Project Server again.
Okay, final question. If I use generic resources for planning purposes, what do I choose?
We actually recommend that you do a top-down resource planning outside of the schedule, and that can be done with both options through Sensei IQ's resource management module. But if it has to be on the detailed tasks in the project schedule, then Project Server is your only option.
Thanks, Chad and Mark. I really appreciate your expertise and input on this.